Welcome, curious minds, to another episode of the Pharmacept channel. As usual, I'm J Paps and I'll be your guide throughout this session. If you are enjoying this content, don't forget to smash a like, comment, and subscribe for our latest content. Now let's jump right in. So in this video, we are going to be looking at part 2 of functional group chemistry. So in our previous video, we talked about functional groups, and now we are going to be looking at some functional groups in some organic molecules, and we'll be identifying these functional groups. So let's go straight to it. Now for our first example, as you can see, we are seeing a carbon double bonded to an O and an OH. What does that remind you of? Okay, it reminds you of a carboxylic acid. So the first functional group we can find here, okay, is what? A carboxylic acid. So let me just write carboxylic acid. Right. Now we also have a benzene ring, which we'll talk about in the future, but it can also be described as an aromatic compound. So just put that at the back of your mind, that this here is benzene. Right. Now let's move to the second one. Okay, so for the second one, you can see SH that is bonded to a ring. Okay, now this SH, what does it remind you of? Ethyl. If that is what you thought, then you guessed right. Ethyl. So that is the functional group that we find present there, right? Perfect. Now let's move on. Here we have CH3, CH2, CH bonded to an OH and CH3. So here, when you remember from the first three that we spoke about first, we mentioned an alcohol or a hydroxyl or hydroxide group, and we see one present here. So we have what? A hydroxyl group. Hydroxyl group. Perfect. And it's a normal alkane chain continuum. That's fantastic. Now to number 4, what we see here, we didn't discuss that, but we call it an ether. So if you see a compound that has an oxygen, all right, connecting two chains of carbon or two chains of single bonded carbons with hydrogen, whatever the substituent may be, if there's an oxygen linking them, it's called an ether. Okay, it's called an ether. Beautiful. Now I think we can proceed. So here we have this beautiful structure here, and you can see that there is an occurrence of an ether again. Okay, and on the other hand, we have what? Double bonded O, an oxygen, and another substituent attached to it. That reminds you of what? An ester. So you might look at these names and get confused, but one is an ether and one is an ester. Okay, they might look the same, but an ester has a double bonded O before having an oxygen and a continuous substituent, but an ether is an oxygen, or we can just term it as an oxygen combining or connecting to carbons to each other. That's the basic form of an ether. Beautiful. Then let's move on. All right, so sulfur group connecting two carbons to each other. Okay, serving as the linkage. What does that remind you of? A sulfide, right? Perfect. Guessed correctly. So this is a sulfide. Wonderful. So we can continue this. Now for number 7, we have a benzene ring, a nitrogen bonded to a carbon with a double bond O. Does that ring any bells? If you are thinking about an amide, then you are right, because it's an amide, because it has a nitrogen bonded to a carbon that has a double bonded O. Beautiful. Now for number 8, this I think is very easy to guess, or is very easy to deduce. We have carboxylic acid substituent, or carboxylic acid moiety, and we've replaced the OH with a chloride, right? A chloride, sorry. And what does it remind you of? Carboxylic acid chloride. Wonderful. So carboxylic acid chloride. Beautiful. Now let's move on here. So number 9, we have a nitrogen bonded to a carbon, and that carbon also has a double bond to another carbon, and that double bond reminds you of what? An alkene. Beautiful. Alkene. Okay, let's get it done. And the nitrogen is what? An amine. Beautiful. I hope you are following this, right? Now let's get to our last example. This is a very peculiar structure. Now if you look at it closely, we have a carbon bonded to a nitrogen, but unlike the previous one we dealt with, this carbon is double bonded to a nitrogen. It has 2 bonds between the carbon and the nitrogen, and this will remind us of what? We remember we spoke about 3 types which were bonded to nitrogen. We have the amine, which was single bonded, one that was triple bonded, which was called a nitrile, and the second one, which was double bonded, is called what? An imine. We have what? An imine. Wonderful. So that's it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed this session. Hope to see you next time.